Just left the Plaza de Biznar. Got a long walk ahead of us now.
In the days of the Republic, those rooms, the spacious house Villa Concha, built around an old mill. During the summer months, Villa Concha served as a hostel for school children from Granada and was known to the locals accordingly as La Colonia. When the Phalangists converted Biznar into a military position at the end of July 1936, the children were sent home and La Colonia was turned into a makeshift prison. Here the cars came each day and night with new loads of victims. A building associated with happiness and holidays has suddenly become a mansion of death. We know from several witnesses that Lorca spent his last hours at La Colonia. When Lorca was told that he was going to be shot, he refused confession at first, but then as the moment came near, he decided that he wanted to take it after all, but the priest had already left. The younger man, seeing the poet's deep distress, assured him that if he asked God sincerely to forgive his sins, he would receive absolution. He helped Federico with the prayer beginning, "I, sinner," which the poet only half remembered from his childhood.
This is all we've got to go by, is photographing Ian Gibson's Lorca's Granada.
The trees were planted quite a few years after because the burial mounds were quite visible under the earth, and the fascists planted the pine trees to hide the outlines of the graves, which was still visible in the 70s. Looking at this peaceful scene, it's unbelievable to believe that behind us are buried hundreds of bodies.
Last time we were here it was springtime. Now it's first week in June. Everything's in flowering, including the poppies, which are profuse. But it's making our task a little more difficult because all the natural landmarks that we're looking for, of course, are covered in foliage.
As the years go by, the landmarks indicating the barranca where most of the Republicans were shot become more invisible. This is the watercourse on Ian Gibson's photograph, but as you can see it's no longer a watercourse, it's totally overgrown. That is the barranco. We've found a better worn path to venture up.
We'll try
Of course the easiest way of finding this place is on the 19th of August,
when
which is the anniversary when Lorca was actually shot. We don't think we need to do any work.
we don't need to do any work. And there's absolutely nothing here of any that officially recognises the atrocity that was committed. I think the fascist phalangists would have stood as we came in, Annie, with their guns and shot the men more or less where they're buried. And shot these poor people in graves that were already dug. You can probably just about see a little red cross on this stone here. I'm going to ask Arrow, yes, I'm going to ask Annie to go up and put her finger on it to show you just how tiny it is. There you go, thank you, Annie. And for those who are like we did today, even though we've been here before, in fact Annie's been here twice before, have difficulty finding the spot, this is really all that there is to assist those who are coming for the first time. So many lizards around here. This one's basking in the sunshine. The camera's shaking because I'm actually quite a distance away from it.
As late as the 60s and 70s, during the Franco era, the civil guard would drive along
Arresting them?
Merely for looking for the grave. Under the ley de fuego, the law of escape. If you were shot in the back, well, you were obviously trying to
run away.
The law, so you were justified being shot.
So Annie, we've got a little bit more of a walk now. That must be the village of Vithnar. It's just
That's all the way we've walked.
all the way meandering road. In the distance there's the snow-capped Sierra Nevada. Yeah, standing outside the memorial park to Federico Garcia Lorca, a mile or so down from the ravine. I think Annie's going to be disappointed because it looks as though it's locked. Well, this gate's well and truly locked. We know there's another gate round the other side. This is the entrance, the other entrance to the park. It's around the corner. Gardens are very busy. Annie and I are not sure whether it's open to the public yet, as it's only noon. And I'm just standing in front of the solitary olive tree where Lorca was thought to be shot. You can see there's much restoration going on. This granite block here where the volunteers have put their bags and their much needed water is the official gravestone, for want of better words, to the Spain's most gifted poet of the 20th century. So it's a bit disappointing in a way. Last time we were here the tree was covered in letters and poetry and gifts to the memory of Lorca, but as I say, it's nice that preservation work is going on. Well, we kindly allowed into the official part of the garden. A very kind man has offered to turn on the fountain especially for us, so we feel highly honoured. He's over there, just about to see him walking up the slope there with his stick. Back in business. Verde que ti quiero verde, verde viento, verde rama.
Bit pissed off about how well you read that, because I don't think I could do that much better. Verde que ti quiero verde, verde viento, verde ramas. Al barco sobre la mar y el caballo en la montaña, con la sombra en la cintura y sueña en su baranda. Verde carne, pelo verde, con ojos de fría plata, verde que te quiero verde, bajo la luna gitana. Las cosas la están mirando y ella no puede mirarlas. That's from the Romanzo Sonambulo, which is commonly called the sleepwalking ballad. Ren wants me to read this poem because it has his favourite Spanish word in estrella, which means star, but I suspect possibly it's because estrella is also a brand of Spanish beer. Si la muerte es la muerte, ¿qué será de los poetas y de las cosas dormidas que ya nadie las recuerda? Oh sol de las esperanzas, agua clara, luna nueva, corazones de los niños, almas crudas de las piedras. Hoy siento en el corazón un vago temblor de estrellas, y todas las rosas son tan blancas como mi pena.
Beautiful.
The very last 4 lines say, today I have in my heart a vague trembling of stars and all the roses so as white as my pain.
With a little bit of difficulty we found Fuente Grande. It was known to the Moors as the Fountain of Tears. You can see it's a still pond which has become an algae heaven. Very, very green indeed. Quite often in Andalusia, places are described as fountains where really there's no fountain to be seen. I think it's a common expression for a place where water can be found, rather than the splendid fountains that you see, say, in the centre of Granada or in Madrid.
Well, actually, La Fuente can mean fountain, but it also means source.
Source, right.
So it doesn't necessarily mean literally a
spurting fountain there.
But
There we go. This is the plate in Ian Gibson's Lorca's Granada, the Fountain of Tears. Annie and I have just arrived in Fuente Vaqueros, an hour later than we expected. To a little village in the Vega, which is the birthplace of Federico Garcia Lorca. Just bought tickets to go into the house where he was born. Which is this beautiful little house here. It's the 5th of June today, and we've arrived on the anniversary of his birthday. And so, in the village square, which I'm just going to walk up to, where Lorca played as a boy, would have been a field then. They're preparing to celebrate his birthday later on this afternoon and in the evening. The last time you and I were here, Annie, we walked all the way along the road here to the cemetery. A bit too hot for that today. It's nice to see a modern building made out of brick. This is a theatre just over the road, facing the house where Lorca was born. Just pan around, there's some building work going on here. And there's the house. And there's Annie, taking a picture of me, taking a picture of her. Yes. When I first saw this ruin here, I thought it was remains of a bridge over the little river Darrow, but it was actually an archway with a sluice gate. A lovely Moorish arch. You can imagine how beautiful it must have looked from both sides of approach. Again, the remains of the archway. The Alhambra standing high and proud on the hill.
We're at the La Huerta de San Vicente, which between 1926 and 1936 was the summer house of the Garcia Lorcas.
When Lorca lived here, he could stand on this balcony and enjoy a glorious view of the Sierra Nevada and town of Granada. But if I turn round, you can see how these monstrous buildings on the periphery of the town are eating into the surrounding countryside. In Lorca's time, this was an orchard, a rather large orchard, but
This is the Huerta del Tamarit. Tamarit is the Arabic for date palm. It's now in private hands, so we can't visit it, but it belonged to an uncle of Federico's, and Federico liked it actually more than Huerta de San Vicente.
Just walked down a few kilometres from the centre of town, actually into the Vega, the fertile plain that's fed by the waters of the Darro and the Canoa. You see the Sierra Nevada quite clearly in the distance there. And as we pan around, you can just about make out the Alhambra, but quite clearly see the hill of the Sacromonte and San Miguel. It's the last day already. Last time we've been walking up the Alhambra hill for a while. Nearly at the top. It's wonderful, Annie can't speak.
Don't know to say anything. I'm out of breath.
I'm going to savour this moment for as long as it lasts. She's speechless.
I've already had 3 less rest. I can't even speak.
While Annie's having a rest, I just want to mention the wonderful way they do the footpath in Granada. It's all done with a mixture of this flat sedimentary rock and cobbles, and they make these most delightful patterns. I'll just, if I have close down, I can go to point to one. These are the cobblestones, and they use these flat sedimentary rocks to make these really quite simple but very pleasing patterns to the eye. And it's also very, very pleasant to walk on.